Have you heard of vegetarian chickens? Now, have you ever raised chickens? Now, I've not raised chickens, but I have been around family members who raised chickens. I grew up in a rural community where chickens were very, very common. You can observe birds like chickens in the wild. We have turkeys where we live, and they're kind of pests, honestly. They're beautiful sometimes, but they're sort of pests. You have to wait for them when you drive down the street, and they all take their sweet time, unless you want to kill a turkey driving, and I don't. They're not vegetarian. They're raptors. Have you not seen Jurassic Stinkin' Park? Those are just great big chickens. But this is a way food is being marketed to people as if chickens don't eat bugs. Now, we were talking about this and getting ready to talk about this. Alex, my producer, had a very interesting question about vegetarian-fed chicken. I'll relay that question to you in just a moment. It is important to understand that our food sources in this country have led to a lot of problems. One of them is massive amounts of inflammation. We as Americans, and maybe you don't, and I know I don't, we eat now hundreds of times more processed sugar than any of our ancestors. That's because processed sugar is a relatively new thing. Did you know that when processed sugar became a widely available product, do you know there were doctors who begged the government to classify it as a drug, to not make it widely available? I've spoken with some of those doctors because doctors looked at the results of sugar in high amounts. The averaging American consumes something like 18 pounds of refined sugar every year. That doesn't count sugar in fruit, in vegetables, in milk. I'm talking about refined sugar such as the white stuff you put on cereal or in soda pops. That's led to an inflammation nightmare. You might have carpal tunnel, can't open or close your hands. You might have neuropathy, and neuropathy can just be this numbness or this buzzing in your limbs or the tips of your fingers. You might have even more serious conditions than that that are driven by inflammation. So what if I told you that going down to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, to Renew Healthcare, staying in an all-inclusive resort, which is a fantastic place right on the beach, could cure you of inflammation-related problems? All in. I've talked about Renew Healthcare and their ethically gathered stem cells from placentas and umbilical cords, but I've really talked about how they help people overcome injuries or avoid surgery. That's all true. But if your body is racked with inflammation, stem cells destroy inflammation. These stem cells that I use from Renew have never touched or been touched by the modified RNA injections because Renew gathered these stem cells before those injections were put out into the world. So if you have inflammation-related problems, go talk with them. All you need to do is go to the website. It's Renew, RENUE.healthcare, not .com, RENUE.healthcare. Tell them you're a member of the Todd Herman Show family. Talk about your conditions. They'll get your medical records. And if an infusion of stem cells can relieve you of that inflammation, you could be relieved of the hang-up of, well, not being able to hold a pen or not being able to get out of bed without pain. It's Renew.healthcare. We now eat in 18.25 days the amount of sugar a person in the 1760s ate in a year. In 18.5 days, less than a month. What's that's done to people, I just talked about. I was talking about Renew. But here's an example of something that is supposedly food. This is a bake shop. And Carrie Kelly, who writes about food, says the biggest reason we're in a metabolic health crisis is because we stopped eating ingredients and we started eating chemicals. Eggs, milk, butter, and flour are ingredients. The 50 ingredient cinnamon rolls are mostly chemicals. 50 ingredients. My daughter made vegan cinnamon rolls during Halloween. They were absolutely delicious, and I asked her how many ingredients there were. She counted all the spices as ingredients. There were 5 spices. There were 4 ingredients. Utterly delicious. But food is this thing now marketed by fad. Chicken is being sold as vegetarian fed. Think of the madness of this. Who doesn't eat chicken? Vegetarians. Alex, the producer of the program, said, wait, why would a vegetarian care that a chicken ate only vegetables? A vegetarian shouldn't care that. But it's the same reason that you see labels on, I saw this on orange juice. By the way, orange juice is soda pop. Orange juice is the same stinking thing as a soda pop. It's sugar, period. It said on this orange juice bottle, gluten-free. Guess where glutens don't live? In oranges. I saw beef jerky that said gluten-free. No kidding, a cow that's gluten-free? The second ingredient in that beef jerky was brown sugar. It also had high fructose corn syrup in it just to make things even worse. Thank goodness for farmers and ranchers who are voting with their social media accounts, voting for truth. A farmer posted this about vegetarian chickens. They don't exist. Valerie Ann Smith posted this. It's very simple. Important. Stop falling for the vegetarian-fed chicken. Here's your weekly reminder. Chickens are not vegetarians. The lady is dropping beef and beef organ. Vegetarian-fed label eggs and chicken is meaningless. The chickens are eating dead cow and dead cow organ. Vegetarian's a code for chickens lacks inside. Chickens are not vegetarian and are instead opportunists, omnivores. Chickens raised outside the pasture produce a far superior product. They can get sunlight, forage for insects and grasses in addition to food. Chickens can go crazy over beef, and they're total. Look at that! It's like The Walking Dead. They love it. When looking for chicken, buy pasture raised and find your local farmer. We also ship our eggs all 50 states. So now they're doing an advertisement, and God bless them for doing it. Here's a hint on food. This is what I've learned as a guy who used to weigh almost 400 pounds, who used to have 39% body fat. I'm 57. I've got about 9% body fat. Can I give you a super easy hint? If you could picture it in the Garden of Eden, eat it. Okay? If you were in the Garden of Eden before the fall and you saw those cinnamon rolls, you'd look at them and smell them and go, what in the name of, well, you're here, God, what are these? Or remember this experiment. A scientist did an experiment with monkeys. What he did was he wanted to find out at what point monkeys would stop considering something food. So he gave them fruit and vegetables. The monkeys said, oh man, fruit and vegetables, we love it. Then he gave them fruit pudding. Very simple. It's just fruit in pudding form. And the monkeys liked it. They liked this vegetable juice kind of mix. Okay, I got that. It's kind of mushy, but okay, I'll eat that. They ultimately got to what is euphemistically called a fruit pie, a Hostess fruit pie. And the scientists put the Hostess fruit pies out for all the monkeys. The monkeys picked them up, sniffed them, and started to smear them on the other monkeys and on the walls. They didn't even recognize them as food. Little advice from someone who's lost a ton of fat. If you could look at it and picture it in the Garden of Eden, eat it. Now, after the fall, we started eating meat. It's pretty easy to look at cow and go, that's cow. It's pretty easy to look at meat and go, that's meat. Pick up an Impossible Burger. Take the wrapper off. Mush it up. Put it on a counter. And tell me you're going to walk up and go, sweet goo. I'll eat that. You won't. Think of food as a common blessing that it is. And the more it looks like what God made for us, the less likely it is to make you really, really sick, including the notion that chickens are vegetarians.